Alrighty, college algebra. Welcome to Missoula's AMI video. I hope you're keeping warm on this chilly day. Um, Today I at least want to go over something relatively easy and straightforward. We'll go through more of those when we get back, hopefully on Wednesday. But today I want to go over graphing some polynomial functions. Now, let's take a look at this first example. Can't read it. I have a 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus x plus 6. I already have it factored out for us because luckily the textbook does it for us. So factored out formula is x minus 2, 2x minus 3, and x plus 1. Now, I'm also giving you a table, so you don't have to memorize too much of anything. But let's first start off with, how do we even approach these? Well, the first thing you want to look at is your degree, meaning your highest power, your highest exponent power, right? I don't think it's a shocker. 3 is bigger than 2, and that's bigger than 1. And x to the 0th is, yeah. So our degree is 3. So we'll put a little 3 on your degree. All right, knocked out. Now, what does a degree of 3 look like? Well, we kind of touched on it already before. But if it's got an odd power, and it's a positive number out front on your leading coefficient, so it's positive 2. And it looks like the classic John Travolta. I know right now it's mirrored, so it looks kind of weird, but you know, the John Travolta, x approaches positive infinity, so your f of x approaches positive infinity. So here, I know my handwriting's made on this chalkboard. It's been a hot minute since I've chalkboard. As x approaches negative infinity, then your f of x approaches downward toward, that's right, negative infinity. Meaning it's going to look like that once it reaches the end, being positive negative infinity, theoretically. So now we got some of it done. That's the hard part. It's supposed to be negative. So now we got the fun stuff. Zeros and y-intercept. Well, let's start off with the y-intercept. That's low-hanging fruit. Y-intercept, so is at x equals 0. So if we're to plug in 0 here, then what would be easiest? Well, you plug it into the factored form and multiply it all out, but even easier, take a look at the FOILed out form. Plug in 0 for x, you got 0 cubed minus 0 squared minus 0 plus 6. So 6. So there we go. And while we're at it, just plot 0, 6 all the way up here. And then zeros. Zeros is x-intercepts. And the best way to find them is look at the factored form. What can you plug in and get 0 here? Well, I know that 2 minus 2 gives you 0. So one of your zeros is 2, 0. So you could also even plot them out right here while we're at it. But 2, 0. Let's look at this one. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So negative 1 is 0. So while we're at it, put it right here too. And then we got this one. 2x minus 3. Well, if you can't do it in your head, set it equal to 0 and do a little bit of algebra. So solving for x. So 2x is equal to 3. X is equal to 3 halves. So 1.5. There we go. And then you can plug that in, but I ran out of room. So now what do? We're combining it all together. I'm going to use pink to see if it's nice and clean. So fresh chalk right here. This is the good quality chalk right here. It's Hageremo chalk. Okay. Spent a lot of money on this, so I barely get to use it nowadays. Here we go. So now let's plot it. So we know the end behavior. So after the last x-intercept on the right, it's x approaches positive infinity. We know it shoots up positive infinity like that. Right? As x approaches negative infinity, going that way, we know it goes down toward negative infinity. There we go. And now we just connect the dots. So it's got to hit the y-intercept here. Gotta go through here. And then through here. And there we go. That's graph number 1. Now on the Google form, you'll have 2 questions to answer. Your very first question that you're going to have to answer is, what's your favorite disco movie? Or actually, no, not movie. Disco song. So like John Travolta, you know. The old John Travolta from Friday Night Lights. I want to know your favorite disco song. No cap. Got it? That's question number 1 on your Google form that you got to fill out. Okay, I'll give you question 2 in a bit. But first, we got to look at this bad boy. Example number 2. It's almost identical, but not quite. So, just like before, you had a factored form, you got the table to fill out. So low-hanging fruit. Firstly, it's a 4x to the 4th. I can't read it because my handwriting's trash. Plus 27x cubed minus 42x squared minus 445x minus 300. I know, big numbers. And then the factored form. So x plus 5 quantity squared. And then 4x plus 3, x minus 4. So now, next up, we know it's a degree 4 because that's the highest power here. It's the 4th power. So put that there. As x approaches positive infinity and x approaches negative infinity. Now, the even powers, we've graphed a few even powers. In fact, that was on your final. 2 is an even number. We graphed some x squareds, and we knew they either look like this or like this. Similar for any even power you have. And if it's positive up front, if it's positive 4, that means it's going to be boop, boop, all the way up. So if x approaches positive infinity, f of x also approaches positive infinity. So x approaches negative infinity, it's also approaching positive infinity. And there we go. Easy as peasy. All right. Just like before, let's go to the y-intercept. So y-intercept being plug in 0. 0 plus 0 minus 0 minus 0 minus 300 is negative 300. I know. Big number. And I'm not going to make 300 ledger marks, so let's just all the way down yonder. Let's put negative 300 here. And then we have the zeros. So something very peculiar about one of this, the x plus 5 quantity squared. There's a square there. So there's something very peculiar happening there. And we'll go over that in a second. But let's fill out this table. We got negative 5 over here. You have 4 here. So all the way 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you also have your 4x plus 3, so negative 3/4. So, and that's ballpark right here. So now, and behavior-wise, we know it's going to go all the way at infinity after our last x-intercepts on both sides. But if you're to go through, then you would have to go back here. But then you have to go back again to hit the negative 300. So the square on the x plus 5, right there, actually makes your graph bounce off of the x-axis there. All even multiplicities do. So it's going to bounce off there, go through, and then hit that y-intercept, and then go through the other x-axis, or x-intercept there. Now we're going to go a lot more in depth tomorrow, when we get back on Wednesday, hopefully. But your second question on the Google form is going to be, what do you think? I don't know. It's got to be mathy, so I got to really think about that. What do you think a multiplicity of 3 does? So if you have an x plus 5 cubed, you don't know? Well, try going on Desmos or GeoGebra and figure it out. That's going to be your task for today. So question number 1, disco song. Question number 2, what happens if it's a 3 instead of a 2 on that multiplicity? All right, if you have any questions, email me. Stay warm.